And we are now live on air. Hello there, everybody. I haven't tweeted this out. I might actually very quickly say that we are actually live now. So if you are watching this, or if you've gotten a notification, you would have gotten this if you are subscribed to us on YouTube, of course. So do share the word that we are live. Let everyone know that we are out there. And of course, let's see if we can keep spreading the word and getting our audience further and further out there, because we're getting some great guests this season. I think you'll be very impressed. So do join us. Jump in on the Q&A, of course, on the YouTube chat. Let everyone know that you're in and you're watching. And yeah, very quickly, just a couple of updates. Obviously, we are changing our way that we can reach more people. Like a complete fool, I thought that I was going to be able to post the entire episode, an hour long, into Instagram TV. Instagram TV only allows our shows for verified accounts, which I sure as hell ain't. We can only do 10 minutes for everybody else. So at this point, I'm working out how to do it. But we are posting the shows to Instagram TV, to SoundCloud, to Apple Podcasts, and also to Mixler as well. If you don't want to watch us on YouTube and you just want to listen along to the show, you're more than welcome to do so. If you go to the homepage for this particular Hangout, there's a Mixler page, or if you go to mixler.com/Englishman SDCC, that's mixlr.com/Englishman SDCC. It broadcasts live. We are going to go live with the audio version when we start the show proper. But I think it's going to be a fun one today, because we've got two great guests, and I hope you'll join us for the next hour. What have you been up to, Alyssa? Is there anything that you've been keeping yourself occupied with?
I have a new addition to my small, very, very, very small household. If you want, I will get him out of his cage and introduce him.
Because you didn't want to scare anyone off.
Yeah, well, you know, I figure with preparing people, people won't get scared versus just having him show up on the top of my head, for example. But
he's not a cat then. He is not a cat.
No, it is not a cat. He is not a cat.
Fair enough.
Okay, unlatch. Come on. Come on. So we have Bud, his name. And
is it Michael? Is it Michael?
No, it's Bud.
Michael
It's
L.
Bud. His name is Bud.
Fair enough. That's me being mean.
Yeah.
Okay. That's very nice. New addition.
Yes.
Excellent.
New addition.
Excellent.
He's
right, well, that's nice. And he's definitely exploring now. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's been in the household for a while, and so he's found the bathroom.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll let him kind of explore around as we kind of dive into the show proper. As might be helpful if I come fully attired.
The chat is open and active.
Yep. Well, we'll do the full intro as I hit start on Mixler. If you are listening along, here we go. This is how it starts. Right, welcome along. My name's Leonard Sultana. I'm an Englishman in San Diego, or that's how I post under for now. And this is Talkin Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. Each and every Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT, we talk Comic-Con and con culture. It's a fascinating little group of people that go to these events each and every weekend. And we talk about not just San Diego Comic-Con or New York Comic-Con, but all cons. The way that people go and interact and meet each other on these special events each and every weekend. And it is every single weekend. There are events of varying sizes. So basically, it's a way we come together and celebrate our little community each and every week. We are live on YouTube. Do jump in on the YouTube chat room. If there's any questions that you want to put to our special guests or anything that you want to raise throughout the course of the next hour. Can also listen live on Mixler.com, and also you can catch up with the show after the event on SoundCloud, on Apple Podcasts, and also on Instagram. Do subscribe and like and comment on all of those. Do let us know which ones that you're listening to and watching, and allow us to pick the ones that we want to keep flourishing and growing and developing. But that's what we do each and every week. We have ourselves some great guests. We've got someone who's going to be joining us a little bit later, who's Hassan, who's the guy behind Panel by Panel, who was Eisner nominated this year. We're going to be speaking to him later on. But we also have my partner in crime, who's just getting herself all settled again on screen. We've got Alyssa Franks from the Friends of Comic-Con Forum. Hello, Alyssa. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Settling in, getting my feet underneath me, enjoying the sunny San Diego. Really liking the fact that they've got this marine layer, which keeps everything cool for a while. Is it a nice
big change to how the contrast to the lifestyle you had before?
Exactly. So, but I like the San Diego weather, which is really nice. Our next guest can talk to us about her first impressions of the San Diego weather.
Absolutely, because I mean, the one thing I think we can safely say for this year, I mean, it wasn't as hot as it's been in previous years, so it wasn't that blistering kind of really nasty heat that we've had at Comic-Con's past, but it was warm enough. So it's great to welcome Erin Carson to join us for today's show. Hello, Erin. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, because you spoke to us, or spoke to myself and a number of Comic-Con bloggers leading up to San Diego Comic-Con 2018, because this was your first time.
Indeed, yeah, first time at Comic-Con, first con ever, actually. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was a milestone. So I had to go and seek some sage advice from folks to get me through.
Well, I mean, I think then the best thing to do is actually talk about, oh yeah, I've been told there's a slight echo. I think there's, it's because I've got the volume up a little bit high. We'll sort that out. Yeah, I think the best thing to do is we'll start with first, introduce yourself really, because it kind of leads into why you were at Comic-Con in the first place. Erin Carson, who are you?
Absolutely. So I'm a staff reporter for CNET, and I cover a wide range of topics from tech that's cool and interesting and fun, startups, and culture, geek culture in particular. So yeah, so ending up at Comic-Con is kind of a no-brainer for me.
So how come it's taking you so long to get to a Comic-Con then?
Oh my goodness, I just needed an assigning editor who's going to send me, you know? So yeah, this was the year that I had covered South by Southwest last March, and it was very kind of pop culture heavy and whatnot. And so this was a good kind of jumping off point to get the assignment to head out to San Diego in July.
Was it something that you actually requested, or was it something that you got assigned? Because I can imagine when you kind of look into and research San Diego Comic-Con, it's one of those things you go, for a first time, it's like, that looks a bit much.
I was willing the universe. I wanted to go. I've been wanting to go for a couple of years. And you know how it is. It's just like conversations that come up with people, and you're figuring out who's doing what for the year and whatnot. And but I was willing it to happen. So.
Excellent. So when it comes to your sort of like your nerd cred, as it were, I mean, what kind of things do you get into? Is it your films, television? Is it comics? What kind of things float your boat?
Oh, I mean, it's a little bit of everything. I love the Marvel franchise. You know? I think like a lot of people, I grew up on like Silver Age Superman comics that my dad had. He has like just a bin of them, and I was lucky enough to get to, you know, sift through a ton of stuff from late 50s, early 60s, all that sort of thing. And I'm just in general like a consumer of pop culture. I love reading. I'm a huge book nerd. I'm a big music nerd. So kind of like to take in as much as I can. Wow.
I mean, okay, so I mean, that's something that they've really been doing a great deal in strides over the last, say, 5-6 years that we've noticed as commentators, that they've really done great strides to increase the literacy and literary element of San Diego Comic Con. So how did that grab you? I mean, what did you get to see this time around?
Well, a lot of what I saw was, what I was kind of there to cover. So it was, everything from, Doctor Who to I caught like the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend panel, which was just a tremendous amount of fun. I had a good chunk of time to just walk around the floor and get to see everything from, like the giant Funko booth on one side to, everyone who's kind of set up shop with booths and has beautiful illustrations and, whatnot. And, for me, a lot of it was also kind of the joy of people watching and seeing all the cool cosplayers and whatnot. So yeah, I was trying to go broad so I could see as much as possible.
When it came to actually preparing for Comic-Con, obviously you hear the stories and you hear about it's almost like the mythology of Comic-Con. Everyone's kind of like built it up as this thing that's on a bit of a pedestal. What was your thoughts of what Comic-Con was going to be like before you went?
Sure. So I think the first significant awareness that I had of Comic-Con was a college roommate of mine who had been going since 2004 and still goes. And I actually saw her this year. And so it was a lot of like long lines and the cosplayers and these panels and, everyone kind of like waiting on bated breath for some interesting nugget of information about, their beloved property and whatnot. And so, and since then, I've just always followed it from afar, on Twitter and whatnot. I think like a lot of people. So yeah, I think that was, my impression that it's going to be a lot of people and it's going to be a lot of excitement kind of running rampant.
And I know that you spoke to myself and you spoke to Tony Kim and you spoke to a number of con bloggers before you actually went out. Was there any of the advice that you were given practical? Was it useful?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, I was thinking to myself, I've covered a lot of conferences for work, but nothing quite like Comic-Con. I've, covered CES and, like I said, South by and a lot of, kind of like tech conferences. And so it was really great to get all this perspective. And it was everything from, wear comfortable shoes and pack wisely and make sure you have food in your backpack, which you almost like can't pack enough snacks, And then there are just also a couple other, I think one of my favorite pieces of advice that someone gave me was just talk to people who are in line with you. And I really took that to heart. I always love to talk to people because I'm a reporter. And so I'm just naturally, like, let's talk. But I had just some really great, interesting, random conversations with folks in the various lines that I was in while I was there.
Oh yeah, making con buddies, I think, is one of the big go-to piece of advice. I don't know if any of us actually put. I seem to think I forgot to actually add that one. But certainly adding con buddies is one of the big things, because it not only on a practical level, because then someone will look after your stuff while you disappear and do what you need to do, but also just kind of like brings that sense of community together, I think, as well. And adds to that. So yeah, I think that's something that perhaps I should have added to my little advice list. Okay, so did you do the whole thing? Or did you just come in on the Thursday, or did you do preview night as well?
I was there the day before it started, yes. So I was there for preview night and a couple other sort of press events earlier. But yeah, and that was something that was kind of incredible, that the preview night was so packed in and of itself. But yeah, so I think I was there for the whole run.
Excellent. I mean, certainly when I spoke to a number of people who had been there and had gone to Comic-Con over a couple of years, certainly over the last 9-10 years as Comic-Con has exploded, because of certain changes that CCI had implemented this year, the Thursday, the first day open of Comic-Con, the words calm and serene and quiet came into mind, certainly for the first couple of hours, as sort of like there wasn't the manic rush for a number of exclusives. Everyone was just kind of a little bit more restrained. But I can imagine as a first timer, that would have been a slightly different perspective for you. What was your take on that first day?
Yeah, well, that's, one of the things that was really interesting to me is, from my perspective and attendance-wise, this is definitely one of the larger events that I've covered. It seems packed, But also so many people I talked to were saying that it was in general just a calmer year because you didn't have Marvel and you didn't have HBO and some of those big sort of drivers at the moment. And so, yeah, it's one of those moments that just shows you perspective. Like, I'm sure if I had 5 years under my belt going to Comic-Con, I would have been like, oh, where is everybody?
I think also it's a slightly different perspective for yourself as well, because you are attending as press and you're going to see certain other elements of the convention. When I speak to people and tell them about attending Comic-Con as press, it almost is a totally different event because you have other rooms to go to and you have other kind of priorities of things to see and do. But how much did you get to see and do as an attendee, as it were, kind of just wandering the floor and seeing the bits and pieces, the offsites and everything else around convention? Did you manage to kind of balance between the two?
I think so. And I think that I'm also lucky in that there are a lot of things that I got to cover that I was just naturally interested in, like covering Doctor Who, the press panel, or press conference, and the panel for that. I was like, I personally would have loved to have seen that, and I did. And I also did it for my job. So that's kind of a convenient, thing. And there were other opportunities, like a bunch of us went to the DC Universe experience. And that was not something that I myself produced a piece on, but just enjoyed seeing all the different, parts of the activation and whatnot. And then there was, there was a couple the things like I mentioned, the Crazy Ex-Girlfriend panel. I did write something about it, but part of the reason I wrote about it is because that's a show that I like on my own, and I also stumbled into a panel for Midnight Texas, which is a show on NBC that I think has filled some of the void that Grimm left. That I just kind of enjoy it, and I had some spare time, and so I just wandered in. So I think it was a good balance.
Alyssa, any questions that you want to put in?
What was the biggest surprise? I mean, San Diego Comic-Con was my first con too, and I just was surprised at the camaraderie of all of the geeks. But what was your biggest surprise, unexpected surprise?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I don't know that there was any one thing that sort of really caught me off guard. Yeah, that's a good question. I have to think about that. But yeah, I mean, the camaraderie is definitely, incredible. Not every event is like that. I think the one of the only other places that I see that kind of very open-heartedness, if you will, is the Grace Hopper Women in Computing conference that happens every year, that it's just 20,000 attendees and everyone's just hyped up and just happy to talk and happy to share stories and whatnot. So just good vibes.
That's a wonderful. Sorry, go ahead, Leonard.
No, I was going to ask about because you did post a piece about your experience as a first timer, and I did quite like the fact that it did mention the lines. At the end of the day, they are going to be there, and it is something that you are going to spend some time in. But it sounded like it was a pretty positive experience from that piece. I mean, did you find any low points that did kind of grate against your expectations of going into Comic-Con?
I don't think so. I think that if you ask me just what my least favorite part of it, I could tell you my least favorite line that I stood in was, waiting for a wristband Thursday night to get into Hall H on Friday morning. And that, not that kind of an experience is unexpected, but when you have this circumstance where it's 9 o'clock at night, I've eaten through my Cliff Bars, there's not really anybody around to talk to, and that's the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to go. But I feel like part of, at least from my perspective, going to something like Comic-Con is you got to go and gripe about the lines a little bit, it's part of the package.
One of the things that a lot of people do to combat that type of line is to have friends with them. So they find, you know, if you're able to meet up with a group of friends that or acquaintances even that are going to Hall H the next day, it just helps pass the time and has somebody, you know, they can hold your place in line for you while you need to go out and get a you know, some to-go food or something like that. Even pizza delivery people they'll deliver in line. So those kinds of techniques have been for the next year, because we're assuming that you're going to be coming back next year.
Yeah, no, and I could really kind of see the difference, you know, having waited in a good handful of lines, the ones where I was either with people I knew or I managed to strike up conversations with other people in line. Like, they went a lot faster and were just in general more enjoyable. So I can totally see that.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come in on the Q&A, and one of them I think is one that Alyssa has just asked, but worded slightly different. This is from Andrew Dickinson. Would you go on your own volition in the future if it wasn't work related? If you weren't being forced to go, if you weren't being paid to go, would you go?
I would love to. I mean, it was kind of one of those bucket list things in a way, you know? And I think that, yeah, if I have a chance in the future and I've got, you know, friends out there I can crash with and whatnot, I would love to go and just, you know, I used to cover music before I was in tech. And so I can see parallels where, you know, you love covering a show and writing a review, but it's also nice to just go to the show, you know, every once in a while. So yeah, if I had the chance, I'd totally go on my own.
Because I think also it's that thing. I'm really curious because I mean, yeah, 2010 was my first year, and I think with Alyssa as well, it was a case of we caught the bug. Did you catch the bug?
Oh, I would love to go again. And I mean, you know, one of the things that I was talking about with my editor is like, how fun would it be to like try and cosplay or kind of, you know, and I think particularly one of the things that I was thinking about is now that I have this 1 year under my belt, I feel like it would be a lot easier to, you know, plan for the next year. And I was leaving the event already thinking of things that I wanted to explore and, you know, and whatnot. So yeah, it was fun.
You've got 1 year under your belt. You're a veteran now.
I know everything.
Short answer, yes, she's caught the bug.
Sounds like it, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. And another question, this has come from Andrew English. Was there anything that you missed, anything that you wanted to see? Because I can imagine also there's a little bit of that crossover between stuff that you are wanting or needing to cover for CNET and things that are being scheduled on, because it is the kind of the big con thing that you're going to not see everything that you want to check out. Is there anything you missed?
Sure. So I think that there were a few panels that I would have loved to have caught, like, you know, Better Call Saul and the Breaking Bad reunion and Deadpool and all that sort of thing. And you know, of course, you can't be everywhere at once, but it would have been fun to see those as well.
Excellent. Any other questions, Alyssa?
I had a couple, but I've forgotten them. Dreadful. It's like dreadful. Absolutely.
Well, we've got a couple more questions on the Q&A, and I've got a couple to wrap things up. But certainly, I mean, is there any other cons lined up for yourself? I'm certain that there'll be a couple on the techie side that you'll be wanting to attend.
Oh boy. So so on the tech side, the conference I mentioned, Grace Hopper, I'll be heading out there in a few weeks in Houston. So if you're curious about that, you know, hop on over to CNET and whatnot. And I'll be by Southwest again next year. But as far as like cons, I'm based in Louisville, Kentucky, and so it's a, you know, we don't always get major events. I think that there have been a couple in the past year. I know that there was like a board game con that happened, I think in Cincinnati, maybe a couple weeks ago, if I'm remembering correctly. But I think if that sort of thing comes on my radar, I would like to go and explore.
I'm just going to say, if you find yourself, would you find yourself wanting to go to any of the smaller conventions, or would it? Now you've been to the big one, is it the bigger events that you'd like to stick around going to?
I think it's, you know, it's one of those matters of just like opportunity. Like I also like small events because I think that I've covered smaller conferences and things in the past, and they're always different, and it's always interesting to kind of talk to the people that are there and kind of absorb the vibes, and you learn different things and see kind of a different facet of the picture, with the variety of events that you end up going to. So,
did you have an opportunity to catch any of the tech? The newer technologies that were around at San Diego? Did you get over to the, I believe at the Omni, they had a room for VR and the like. Did you have an opportunity to get there?
So I personally didn't, but I think several of my colleagues did. I know several of them did the Jack Ryan escape room and really enjoyed that, and that had like a virtual reality element to it, as well, which is just always kind of fun. I did a bunch of those types of experiences, for example, at South by Southwest last year. Like there was a huge activation for Ready Player One that had all kinds of VR games and demos and things that you can do. So that's always interesting to see how, you can kind of bring this really immersive element into this interest that so many people have. So I didn't actually get around to that myself, but we had it covered though.
So nobody was able to cover the back room, the technology of the Jack Ryan experience for the VR. They just did the experience, the escape room.
I'm trying to remember.
I think I have
to double check the article.
How much of it did turn into a blur, by the way?
Oh, well, that's the funny thing is before this, I was trying to remember, like, what did I do every day and what else was there? And it does, it's so much happens. It does kind of, blur. And then I had actually left Comic-Con to go on another reporting assignment immediately after that. So my brain for like the last half of July was just like scrambled.
A lot of people usually take a few days off after San Diego.
I embarked on a whole new excursion.
Well, out of the entire blur, then, can you pick out maybe one or two major highlights for 2018? Then
it was for me. It was definitely Doctor Who. It's a show that I've been watching since college with my best friend, and I got to go to the press conference that preceded the panel, and that was just really cool. Jodie Whittaker seems to have a really great energy and be just immensely likable, and it was interesting to hear her and the showrunner Chris Chibnall and everything talk about what they see for the show going forward. It's going to be a doctor for everyone and introducing more diversity into the writer's room and behind the camera and all that. And I just kind of walked away with the sense that I don't think she's going to have any trouble winning people over. So for me personally, that was exciting.
I'm really curious to see how Jodie's going to go down, because we didn't see any clips of her on the show, as it were. It was very much kind of like visuals, show clip reel of what we got previewed at that panel. At the end of the day, there's Scottish, there's some very strong accents here in the UK. Yorkshire is one you have to kind of really negotiate. And I'm wondering how Yorkshire she's going to be. I'm really up for when she comes out, when the show comes out. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely.
So, looking forward to that. Excellent. So you're thinking of going back. Was there, if someone came to you now asking for advice about Comic-Con, what would you advise somebody, as someone who's gone for the first time? Against the stuff that we advise you as people who've been going for a couple of years, what would you advise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you all had it so well covered. I was trying to think of it, if there was anything else that I would add. And I think that, I really kind of covered the bases with like comfortable shoes and snacks and Purell and also just taking a minute to step back from the fray and just remind yourself to enjoy what you're in the middle of, because it's really kind of an interesting thing. And so, it's easy to get so caught up and like, oh, I got to get to this place and that place and get my seat and get kind of manic. But it's a cool event, and it's good to take just a second to remind yourself that you're there. So.
Yeah. Did you manage to enjoy yourself in terms of away from the convention? Did you manage to get to any of the parties? Did you manage to get any kind of social life going?
Not so much. You know, when you're working a event like this, you've got a lot of deadlines and you have a lot of stories to file and whatnot. But it was fun. I got to see a lot of my coworkers that work in different offices and whatnot, and so we were able to, have a beer and then go back to the hotel and continue to work. So,
fair enough.
But it was good.
I admire your dedication to it. I appreciate that. That is that's fantastic. Listen, Erin, thank you very much indeed for coming on. I really appreciate you talking about your experience as a first timer. Hopefully we'll see you at Comic-Con 2019. It's obviously a big one. It's the 50th anniversary. So hopefully you'll be able to make it out.
Sure thing. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me again.
It's not a problem at all. Thank you so much indeed. So there you go, Erin. Where can people find you and follow your work online?
Absolutely. So you can find me at cnet.com. On Twitter, I am at Erin Carson, ERINCARSON, like Johnny. Those would be the main places.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much indeed for coming on. Thanks for talking to us. Absolutely. Thank you. Excellent. So there we go. That's Erin Carson there. And yeah, I think it's really interesting to get that contrast between what us old hands who have been to Comic-Con a couple of years against someone who's seen it first time. And it's great to see that it still has a lot of that energy and a lot of that excitement about it still generates the buzz in people, and it's not an event which you can get jaded about. So I think that's really cool. I mean, did you bump into any first timers? Because I bumped into a couple, Alyssa.
I did not. Yeah, the only other thing that I probably would have gone talked to Erin about a little bit more is the perception of lines, and because that's the thing that I was so surprised about, is that I really did not mind standing in line. I kind of actually looked forward to it. And I'm going to be interested in talking to our next guest about his perception of lines, although he was more on the professional side.
Well, he didn't attend this year. He kind of saw it from a virtual standpoint. He didn't attend Comic-Con this year. But we'll get to Hass in a second. We'll just very quickly do a couple of announcements. Once again, if you are watching this on YouTube, do keep your questions coming into the live chat. And of course, if you are wanting to just listen along, you can go to mixler.com/Englishman SDCC, which is a way for you to almost have a radio experience of what we do on the Talkin Con show each Sunday. I also want to kind of encourage you to do support our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/Englishman SDCC. We are going to be trying to post as much as we possibly can in terms of links. We were wanting to possibly make the YouTube show just exclusive to Patreon supporters for a couple of days. That didn't quite work out. So we're going to rethink about how that's going to work. But there's definitely going to be stuff for the Patreon supporters over the next couple of months. So please do jump in and support where you can, considering that you will be getting live streams from panel sessions with people like Brian Azzarello, Donny Cates, Frank Miller, Andy Kubert, Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor, Frank Cho, Tim Sale, Matt Hawkins, John Romita Jr., all of these are what I'm going to be posting up on the Patreon as I attend the MCM shows. Also going to be posting my panels from ICE as well next month. And also I'm going to be sharing as much as I can from Meanwhile Comic-Con down in Chichester. So basically, I will be sharing those to the Patreon page first. And I think I'll also be live streaming a number of those things to the Patreon page as well. So that Frank Miller interview that you wouldn't mind catching, I think I'll be doing that live on the Patreon page. Do go to patreon.com/Englishman SDCC. Also, we're going to be doing the site relaunch in about 2 weeks' time, or we're going to be closing the doors on an EnglishmanInSanDiego.com, and we're going to be preparing for the launch of the new site at the beginning of October. We are wanting to get a newsletter put together so we can share our updates on the new site. So if you'd like to go to Englishman SDCC on Twitter, just direct message me or send me a message on Twitter, letting me know if you want to be added to that newsletter. We'll be sharing all the updates and letting you know what happens when we go live. We'll also be asking you what you want from the site as well, considering it's going to be primarily a resource for convention attendees. So please jump in on that. And also, last but not least, we're going to be running a competition at the end of this show. So do stick around, where you will be able to win a signed copy of this little boy. This is, of course, the 2018 San Diego Comic-Con souvenir guide with the fantastic artwork as done by Mr. Matt Taylor from Mondo. Matt is based here in the UK, and he's been very generous to sign us a couple of copies of these. We're going to be giving one of these away. We'll do a competition at the end of this show, so do stick around. But first things first, we have ourselves our second guest, and he's been patiently waiting, so we'll dive straight in. We've got Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. No, I always get this wrong. I always get it wrong.
It's a hard name. It's a hard name.
It's not. Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. No, it's that last bit.
Elhaou.
It always skips me. Go for it. You introduce yourself, sir.
Hassan Otsmane-Elhaou. It's hard, man. I forget sometimes.
Not at all. Not at all. But Hassan, thank you very much indeed for joining us. The reason why you're on the show is because you're Eisner nominated, man.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's officially on your cards and everything. Yeah, Eisner nominated.
It matters to a very small amount of people that I meet who know what that is. I've taught my mum and dad about it, so they know now.
I think that's the reason why I wanted to talk to you, because, well, first things first, we're going to talk about the magazine that was Eisner nominated, but also about what being Eisner nominated means in 2018. Does it still have the same kind of weight that it has done in the past? But first things first, introduce yourself. Tell us about your background.
I started doing like a YouTube series in 2016 called Strip Panel Naked, which I still do a little bit less frequently now as things have got busier. But off the back of that, where I basically just talk about sort of storytelling things in comic books, how the actual medium works and interesting things that I notice in comic books. And off the back of that, I started doing some writing for Comics Alliance. And then shortly after I joined, Comics Alliance closed down. I'm not sure if those two things are related. But then I was kind of looking for somewhere to write about comics, and I just thought the way that I like to think about comics or write about comics is very unique to me, and not a lot of I didn't want to change it for a lot of places, and I had some offers about people that would host kind of my writing or whatever, but I just thought, like, I just want to do it how I want to do it, and the only way to do that really is just to do it yourself. And I've always been a huge fan of magazines, love magazines. I'm a massive fan of Sight and Sound, which is like a British, it's like I think BFI publish it, right? It's like a British film magazine. I love that magazine. And I wanted to do something that was just like a thing that you got every month. And it was designed and packaged and you know, would have interesting writing about comics, maybe comics you haven't read before, comics that you're already reading, just something that kind of expands your enjoyment of that thing a little bit further, basically, was the plan for Panel by Panel.
Okay, because I mean, the one thing or the word that I always come out with when I explain what Panel by Panel is to people is analytical. It's very much kind of really getting into the nuts and bolts about how stories are told in this medium, which I think there's not many sites or they kind of go in superficially, perhaps. And this is one that actually looks under the hood and really. Sorry, no pun intended there, by the way. Under the Hood is another podcast that Hassan runs, which is also very, very good. But it really gets into the nuts and bolts of what comics is all about. And there's not many publications that do that nowadays.
Yeah, I just want something I wanted something that was engaging, and would make me think differently about the kind of stuff we talk about, the work that we use as kind of like the features in Panel by Panel, but also it's not something that felt like that made me feel stupid when I read it. And there's like a fine line between the kind of like really academic writing, where whenever I've read that stuff and I'm reading it thinking like this is really intelligent, but now I kind of feel dumb, and like I kind of like you know, I don't necessarily want to carry on reading this thing even though it's really interesting. So that finds that balance between engaging, interesting writing and still accessible to people. Still, you know, you read a piece and you still want to read the next piece. And I hope it does that. I hope the magazine does that. But that was what I was kind of aiming for with it.
It's got to be said, it comes very, very close on the latest issue, but then again, it's kind of driven by the subject matter, which is Doom Patrol, which is a pretty cerebral.
That's a hell of a piece. Yeah, Dennis wrote this whole piece on like Gnosticism and Doom Patrol, and when I read that, I felt stupid. But and it was a conscious decision to put it first, and that was mostly because it's almost like a sense of getting it out of the way. But what I wanted to do was I kind of wanted to challenge people first. You know, like sometimes the fun thing about doing the magazine is you can design it a little bit. You know, it's not with a website, you might not necessarily be able to guide someone from article to article to article, but with a magazine you can a little bit more. And so partly there was a design of putting something that was quite difficult up front and just saying like, okay, like we're going to try and get into some stuff here, and you kind of join us and you'll get something out of it. It will be worth it. But yeah, that Dennis Camp's piece on Gnosticism and Doom Patrol was really, I thought it was a great piece. But I did have to read that like a handful of times before it really stuck in. It was good. It was good.
Yeah, I'm going to have to admit to that one as well. But, I think also the strength of panel by panel, as well as it being incredibly well designed, it's a very easy read. It's a great thing to look at.
I hope so. Yeah.
Also, the talent that you've actually gotten involved to write for the magazine, to write articles, and the kind of the connections that you've made to actually put together specific issues on specific topics and get the creators involved. How long has that taken to kind of develop that relationship with creators?
Not very long. I think doing the Strip Panel Naked series gave me, you know, some kind of like leeway with people had heard of it. So when I kind of approached them about the magazine, they'd heard of the YouTube series first, and then the magazine. And so there's been a handful of times, obviously, where I kind of like pitched it to people and they've been like, I don't know what that is, but they've taken a look at some issues and they've really enjoyed it and said yes. And that's usually how it happens. It's just I kind of pick a book I think is worthless talking about, and then we just fingers crossed and approach the creators and just say, please, would you be interested in doing this? Because I don't want to do it if they aren't going to be involved in some way. And at least in an interview, like at least we kind of, you know, do like a big in-depth interview at minimum. We've been lucky enough at some cases, like Eric Heizura wrote a really cool piece on his writing in issue 7, the secret weapons issue, which also had Raoul Allen and Patricia Martin, who draw that book, also had them writing a piece. So I try and get them involved in some way, because like that's, for me, that's also the interesting thing, is like peeling back a little bit of how a thing is made is always super exciting. So I like to try and get that in as much as possible. But I found that people have been quite open to it. I don't think we've had anyone say no at all. No, I know we haven't had anyone say no. The Doom Patrol Young Animal issue I was a little bit worried about, because there was a lot going on in that one. But it also, the people that write the essays that aren't the creators involved are also incredible. I mean, you're talking about Dennis Camp's piece in the latest issue. Like, that is a really clever bit of writing. Tiffany Babb, who writes quite frequently for us, just hands in the most amazing things. I'm always super excited to read what the writers put together. You know, when I get the pictures through for the latest issue and I say, you know, I'm thinking about covering this, and I get these kind of emails from everyone saying, well, can I talk about this? Can I talk about that? It's like, I can't wait personally to read those things. So it's kind of like, it's always been a very much like a personal thing of, I just make this thing so that I can read it almost, and just hope that everyone comes along for the ride. Because I just love reading it every month. I don't like reading it like the 6th time I've read it to edit it and proofread it. Like, by that point, I'm done reading it. But like the first pass, I love reading it the first time. So I hope everyone has a similar reaction. It
definitely feels like there's been a floodgate of people that have just gone, oh, okay, this is somewhere for me to get in and talk about this thing that I'm excited about, instead of just talking about how the industry's struggling, how issues aren't selling, how all the controversies that are going on. This is something that we can love and really embrace, and it's somewhere to go. I mean, we've got a couple of people who are jumping in on the Q&A. We've got Leanne D. Panel by Panel has been a wonderful resource. Congratulations on the Eisner nomination.
Thank you.
And well, I'll tell you what, we'll dive straight into that then. So,
yeah,
where did you find that out then? How did you find out that you'd been Eisner nominated?
Well, it's a weird process, because the editor of the thing that you're nominating has to nominate you.
Ah, right.
In a sense. So I had to put this submission in for Panel by Panel, and to kind of say like, we're worth, you know, selecting. And then that's it. And then
it's been a very brave thing to do, considering this is year one.
Yeah, well, we were 6 months in, so it's only 6 issues in by that point, because we started in June 2017, and you know it runs kind of like January to December as their nomination year, so it was only 6 issues, and I put it in, and I wasn't really expecting it because there was a really strong nomination group in 2017, super strong, so I was a bit nervous. I put it in, and then you just get like an email back from Jackie Estrada, you know, who is the person that kind of organizes it all, and it's just kind of like okay, you know, this will be passed on to the judges. You'll hear back at some point, or you won't hear back, I guess, maybe if you're not nominated.
You'll hear from us, yeah.
And then it was Helen's birthday, actually. It was my partner's birthday. Was the day we found out, which was the 20th of April. And we were on. I think we were in like Disneyland or something. And then I got this email through saying, you know, you've been shortlisted. But obviously, you can't really talk about it for like 2 months until the actual nominations are announced, or a month or whatever it was. Yeah, so I just had an email, and it's just like it's a really like, you know, uncelebratory thing. It's just like an email saying like, congrats, you've been nominated for this. Shortlisting this thing, and that's it. Like, you'll hear more soon. It's like, okay, cool. Thanks. So, you know, obviously we celebrated with all the writers and everything, and we you know, celebrated, we chatted online because we were all in different parts of the world. But yeah, it was really cool. It was really, because it is a kind of like a feeling of like validation, like you are doing something award worthy. You know, it's not rubbish, it's not nonsense. So that was good. It feels good, you know. It does feel really, really good. I rang my parents, and my parents had no idea what I was on about.
How did that conversation go down?
Well,
explaining what the Eisners were. Yeah,
you know, because it's like you want to try and explain, like, based on the award ceremony they'll know, but also saying like it's like the Oscars for comics is not really that accurate. So, but it's like there's nothing else to compare it to, because like what other award shows, like. It's the tone. It's not because it's not the Tonys, you know. It's not. It's like the biggest comic award show, but also the biggest comic award show is like, you know, not to put down comics or comic award shows, but in terms of the general populace, the biggest comic award show doesn't necessarily mean a lot to a lot of people.
Maybe it's more along the lines of the Hugos, or, you know, for the science fiction book award shows.
Yeah, but then if I say that to my parents, you know, like my parents are like, you know, I've got like an Algerian dad who has, you know, it's not going to mean anything. So there's no relevant thing for that. So it was just kind of like, it was one of those things where like I'm trying to make him excited so that he feels like, you know, well, sort of proud or whatever for a moment, but it's really difficult because then it's just like you're on the phone like super excited, and then my dad's like, yeah, it's good, it's really good, yeah, well done. And I'm like, no, it's a big thing. I'm like, it's a big thing.
Joe, pass the peas now. Thank you.
It's basically that. Like, it's cool. Yeah, it's cool. It's a really cool feeling, but it's like you can only be excited about it with other people who are also into comics, because otherwise it doesn't, you know, you feel like I promise it's good. Like, please.
Well, okay. But in that case, I suppose the question then is, for yourself, I mean, what was your thoughts on the idea of being nominated and the possibility of winning an Eisner? What's the Eisners meant to you? Or is it literally just a label that you see on these creators that you've aspired to and who you followed? The fact that you see the words Eisner nominated, Eisner winning, is it a label now?
No, I do genuinely believe, like, it is genuinely an honor, because it means that you're doing something that is worthwhile. And I think like that's always the difficult thing when you're doing something where you're not necessarily like having a lot of interaction. You know, it's kind of like a sealed off thing where I'm working on this thing for like 4 weeks, and then it kind of gets released, and then you kind of just straight onto the next one. So there isn't necessarily always a moment to like sit back and reflect on a previous issue, because like literally the moment the next one's out the door, often not even then, really it's 2 weeks before the next one's out, you're already working on the next one. You know, so like the Immortal Hulk issue, we've been chatting about that for like the past 3 weeks, and the latest issue's just come out. The Young Animal one we've been working on for about 2.5 months. So you're kind of doing all these issues concurrently, and so the moment one comes out, there isn't a moment to be like, is this like, are we good? Is this good? Is this worth the effort and the amount of time that is being put into it every month? So there is a moment of validation of like, okay, just keep doing this. Like, it's people have responded to it well. People have kind of read it and gone, this is worth a nomination. So it validates the amount of time that is put into it. Yeah, it's cool. It's really, really cool. I hope we can get nominated again in the future at some point. But like, yeah.
I think it says a lot that, like you say, it's 1 year in. I mean, we're on issue 13 now. We're like it's
14 has just come out. Yeah,
absolutely. And the fact that you are not Eisner nominated in that first year, and people are recognizing panel by panel as a quality examination of this thing, like it says on the front cover, the thing we love, comics. Which I think is just it does say an awful lot about the publication. When it came to the Eisners itself, did you follow along live?
Yeah, man, of course.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Actually, considering this was the longest Eisners to date, and my God, we felt it. It was a 3.5 hour show, I believe, and it was long. Yeah, I mean, we'd been about 9:30, 10 o'clock for your one. What time? Yeah, I mean, did you follow along?
Yeah, so I stayed up in the hopes that someone was going to stream it, and luckily someone streamed it on Twitch. Just like a random, person that was there was streaming the thing, and then it got to like, I was like, surely they'll put this one first because it's probably one of the lower down awards, and then they didn't, and I was like, they put like a real award first. So I was like, I've got no idea when this is going to happen. So I tried to stay up, and I fell asleep, and I woke up at like 3:30 or 4:45. And I woke up like in the days, like, oh my God. And then, like opened the Twitch stream. The guy was still streaming. So I like looked at the list, and luckily, so Tiffany Babb, who I mentioned earlier, one of the writers, she was there. So she was sat as our representative or whatever in the room. And so I was like, messaged her on Twitter. I was like, Tiffany, like, what's happened? And she was like, no, I think she was like, we're 4 awards away or whatever. And I was like, oh wow. So my body just woke me up, I don't know, telepathically or whatever, just at the right time. And what was worse was I was watching this stream, and then the guy who's streaming it is like, oh, we're going to go now. And I was like, no, like, you're like 1 award away, man. Just stay there. And then they didn't. So they got up and left the room. Then they came back in just before Felicia Day, who announced the award, like, came out. And I was like sweating, 4 o'clock in the morning, just like, oh God, please come back in. So they came back in, and we saw... we got a really nice cheer, which was awesome. That was really cool to see. We got like we got a really nice cheer in the room, which was sweet. And then it was a little bit heartbreaking, but I had assumed for a while that Comics Journal was going to beat us. That's a very good publication. It was a little bit sad, obviously, but I had braced myself for it. As a northerner and with a foreign dad, you get used to disappointments quick. Like, that's bred into you, so you expect the worst, and if it's something good happens, then that's a positive. So you go in expecting the worst. I
mean, like you say, I mean, the Comics Journal is not exactly something that you sort of like are begrudgingly.
No, yeah, no, they're fantastic. Comics Journal, yeah, absolutely.
So it was a case of, okay, I've lost, I can go to sleep now.
Yeah, I just went straight back to sleep. That's basically it. I was up for about 10 minutes, and it was cool because I didn't realize it was going to be Felicia Day. I like Felicia Day, so that was cool. And then I just went back to bed. And I woke up the next morning, and I started putting the next issue of panel by panel together.
Fair enough. I mean, what was the kind of the communication from friends and peers as well? I can imagine. When the nominations came out, and also when the result came in.
Yeah, it was really sweet. Like, it was when I got nominated, I got like a lot of congrats and you deserve it kind of things. What was better, what I loved was when we lost, because when we lost, losing's the best, because when you lose, you get loads of people who are like, you should have won, and that's a cool feeling. So that's always good. I remember I got like Dave Gibbons messaged me, and Dave Gibbons was like, he was like, commiserations, like, I'm sorry you lost, but just for the record, like, you had the loudest cheer in the room. So I'll take any moment in which
I represented the best I could.
No, I'll take any moment in which Dave Gibbons, has to drop you a line to say that you were popular in the room. So I'll take that.
And then you reply, and congratulations on your Hall of Fame.
No, I didn't say that because he won and I didn't, so I was bitter. I left it like a couple of hours, so I had to calm down. Yeah, no, of course, yeah. He deserves every second of that, obviously.
Okay, Alyssa, any questions?
I think you've covered it all.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. I mean, I'm looking forward to any future issues, and like I say, I'm looking forward to continued success for Panel by Panel. I mean, you teased what the next issue is going to be about. What themes are going to be on issues down the pipe? Can you give us a bit of a revelation of what's coming down?
No.
No.
No, I can't. So Immortal Hulk is September's issue. October's issue, it's, I don't want to say just in case, because I'm as I said, I'm like because I'm Northern, so I get really nervous about everything. So I don't. It may not happen. It is, well, it's supposed to happen, but it may not happen. But October should be a really, really good book. November is going to be a really good book. And then I'm thinking for December, because we didn't do one last year, so I'm thinking for December we may do. I thought it'd be really good fun to like open up to not have a feature book for 1 month and just get the writers who regularly write for the magazine to write about a comic that maybe didn't get the attention they believe it should have in the past 12 months. So I think for December we may do like kind of like an end of year kind of open feature with a bunch of different interviews from creators that we love, and you know, a bunch of essays about books that we didn't quite get to cover in the past 12 months.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, hopefully.
That's cool. Okay, I mean, we've got a couple of questions. Like I say, we've got lots of people who have read Panel by Panel, really big fans, so wanting to pass on all the best. Also, we've got 1 or 2 people who are very grateful that you cover the positive aspects of comics, and you don't necessarily get into the politics of the industry as such, more the actual story crafting of how comics are made, which I think a lot of people appreciate, considering that there is so much discussion in the terms of politics and certain groups of fans being real.
Well, we do sort of cover politics in a sense. I mean, like in the Black Bolt issue, which was issue 6, there was a feature about like the prison system in the US and things like that. So we do cover political topics, but the stuff that I'm more interested in is using the stories and the comics that we cover as a springboard to talk about other ideas rather than specifically the industry. There's plenty of places that cover the industry stuff that's not, you know, it's not really my interest, and that's, as I say, that's mostly where Panel by Panel originated from in the first place. So.
Cool. So where's I mean, I have actually been one that has just bought the year 1 pack as well.
So that's a bargain deal.
Yes, because I missed a couple of issues, so I ended up buying. I just bought them all again. Yeah,
it's a bargain.
So where can people find and buy and discover more about Panel by Panel?
The easiest place to go, I guess, would be gumroad.com/panelxpanel. It is pronounced Panel by Panel, but it's just easier to say Panel X Panel in the URL. So gumroad.com/panelxpanel, or you can get it on, the Twitter account is just @panelxpanel, or follow me at Hassan-Oe, because I just tweet about it like relentlessly. Don't know if that's a positive thing. And like you said, there's a bundle which has the first 12 issues, so that's like, it's like 1,200 plus over 1,200 pages of magazine, and it's like $15. So, which is what, like a tenner, just over a tenner in English money. Yeah, it's like 10 pounds. You get 12 issues of a magazine. So everyone should do that because it's really good. Yeah, it's Eisner nominated.
Absolutely, the Eisner nominated Panel by Panel. Admittedly, I understand that the Doom Patrol issue is going to be going through a little bit of a discount because it's got a page review by somebody, and therefore that's bringing the price down because it's substandard.
No, it's gone up.
Yeah,
because it's a collector's piece. It's double the price for your review, for your mini review. Yeah, of course. Yeah,
I put that in purely off the off chance, and it got in the issue, and I'm now. Yeah, I'm that.
Eisner nominated. You're Eisner nominated.
I don't think the words Eisner nominated an Englishman in San Diego is ever going to happen. So we'll just let that slide. Hassan, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I look forward to reading more issues because it really is for me an essential read, and I'm looking for the next one. Has, thank you very much indeed for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So there we go. That has been our guests for today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We are going to very quickly. I know that we're kind of running out of time, so we'll do this very quickly just to cover the quick updates on a couple of con news bits and pieces. Number one, what we're going to be doing with the show later is spending a good 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes on the updates, but we have run a little bit long, so we're going to cut this short a little bit. Number one is regarding Amazing Comic-Con, which took place, or was supposed to take place, in Hawaii this past weekend. However, in the face of Hurricane Lane, the event has been cancelled. It was announced yesterday. Guests and attendees were told, stay away. Basically, don't get on the plane, don't come and see us, because at the end of the day, it's just too much of a risk. Thankfully, the hurricane itself was downgraded to a tropical storm, but serious flooding did make it a very treacherous thing to go and attend. If you do follow Amazing Comic-Con on Twitter, they will be announcing replacement dates. I believe that they're going to be announcing tomorrow, so do follow that. Alyssa, do you want to very quickly talk about San Diego Comic-Con versus FanX?
There was a judgment that was handed down recently, which, interestingly enough, came out on the side of San Diego Comic-Con, CCI. They were awarded all of the damages, not damages, but the court cost fees. As Leonard you pointed out earlier, I believe, in the pre-show, that you had all of the how did you phrase that again?
Well,
you phrased
what happened was there was the court agreement that had been made in terms of the cease and desist, and basically an agreement or a court settlement was made by Comic-Con. Or by the judge against Salt Lake Comic-Con, which then rebranded as FanX. FanX then they appealed against that decision, and this recent decision this week is basically, no, you're still wrong, and we're going to now bill you for all the court charges. $4 million worth is insane. But what was really interesting for me when I was reading the coverage was all the entertainment magazines and all the varieties and the deadlines of the world. They concentrated very much on the financial settlement, that at the end of the day, Salt Lake had lost again, and they were now having to pony up, instead of something like $140,000, they now have to find $4 million. Like a couple of weeks away from their actual event. But it was interesting that that's what the entertainment magazines covered. The convention and the pop culture and the comic sites all covered the element of the ruling, which was the reinforcement that Comic-Con is San Diego Comic-Cons, which really kind of puts a spanner in the works for anyone with the words Comic-Con in their title. So this could turn into this could be quite a big thing. So there. Speaking of FanX, announced today. Oh, hang on, we've got a finger in the air. Go for it, Alyssa.
1 minute.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. Jeff Goldblum has announced that for FanX, he is going to be appearing at this year's show, kicking off on the 6th to 8th of September. Do head to the website for your tickets for that, but he is now available for tickets for photo ops and signatures, and that's with Jeff Goldblum. Also, last but not least, MCM, more comics guests have been announced for London. Frank Cho and George Molina have been announced. Frank Cho, of course, has been one of the artists on the recent Hulk book, and you've had George Molina, who's also been on the Avengers. VIP passes are also now up for Frank Miller. They're available for sale if you want to get them. This is for MCM London in October, £150 if you want to spend 45 minutes in the company of Frank Miller. So there's that. Right, and that's been our com news. Very brief. We do have a number of things that we wanted to cover, but we'll let that slide for this week. Very quickly, let's talk about a competition that we're going to run, and that is to win yourself this signed copy of the convention guide for 2018. The way that you can win this, what we need to know from you is what has been your best ever convention memory to date. It can be a story, it can be a photo, it can be your own memories of any convention that you've been to. We want to know your favorite and your best convention memory. What we want you to do is share it to either our Facebook or to our Twitter account, and using the hashtag #CupOTCompetition. You can win a signed copy, signed by Matt Taylor, the guy who did the artwork for this book. You can jump in on that and win. Basically, we're going to be running this for 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, we'll present a winner. And basically, if you want to win a signed copy of the 2018 convention guide signed by Matt Taylor, what we need is your best convention memory. Like I say, it could be a video, it could be a photo that you've taken, it could just be a couple of tweets or a post about what your favorite memory of any convention that you've been to. Send that, and using the hashtag #CupOTCompetition, we would love to hear from you. So there we go. That has been our show. Thank you very much indeed to Has and to Erin for being our guest today. Alyssa, where can people find you online?
People can find me on the Friends of CC at Friends of CCI on Twitter, and always on my website, friendsofcc.com.
Excellent stuff. And for myself, you can find and follow, of course, for the moment, at Englishman SDCC. Actually, that Twitter handle is going to stay up and running, but we are going to be shifting everything over in a couple of weeks' time. Do follow the Con Collective. That's TheConCollitve, or take the I out. It's Collective. If you search for the Con Collective, or the Convention Collective on Twitter, you should be able to find us. We should have all the social medias up and running very shortly indeed, but that's where you'll be able to find the new site, which opens its doors Monday, the 1st of October. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. All the chat that has been mentioned, I'm going to go through that over the next half an hour or so, respond to that on Twitter and all the other social medias, because I do want to make sure that any questions you've put forward, I haven't missed. But thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the show. We're back again next week, and hopefully you can join us for another Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. From us, we'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.